while I'm sad. You've been out all night, know you've been bad. Don't tell me different, know it's a lie. Come to me, honey, see how I cry.
Welcome to the Recovery Show with Bernie Z. That's me. And you'll notice today I'm just putting up the hands up there, reaching out of the water, and that's to represent what it's like coming out of recovery, or into recovery rather, out of addiction. Today marks, and at this time, 7:53, marks the beginning of my recovery as it began November 21st, 2007, at approximately 8 o'clock when I got out of a GA meeting and was able to go and buy scratch-off tickets. Now, I did that after having heard all the stories of the things that were lost, the family destruction, the loss of jobs, and having known what I had been through. Because prior to this, I spent 10 days in the adult psych unit for suicidal depression. Now, that suicidal depression was brought on by my being caught, or rather not so much caught, but being made aware of a coworker who had shorted my drawer, and that resulted in my employment being in jeopardy. And it took me quite a while to get back to it, but thanks to a supervisor I had, I was able to keep my job. The problem is, I was working in a convenience store selling my own addiction. So when I came back, I had to have a plan of action in place. And it took the time between that first meeting and when I went back, which was around January of the new year, in 2008. And what I did is basically started focusing on how do I handle my gambling, because that gambling was scratch-off tickets, and it's like at the end of the work day, I would go and I would spend money on scratch-offs, and I might go back to the ATM to get more money, but that was hurting my kids and my ex-wife. There was a problem between her and I. I just did not really have what I felt was a good marriage at that point. And you get to the point where you finally decide, I need to find something to avoid to avoid the problems. And that's what I did. I found something to avoid the problems. And for many people, that can be any number of things that they might be avoiding. The loss of a loved one can drive you to gamble. Even such things as losing your job can send you back to gambling. For me, I had some early difficulties in staying clean, but I didn't gamble. I just knew I had difficulties. The way I handled them was like this. I was working in a convenience store, so obviously with the lottery tickets right there with me, I had to come up with some way. Every time I thought, and what I did is I came up with a way to take what I thought about gambling and associate it with something that there's no way I would want to be involved with. And now my boss might not like me saying this, but I associated it with the bathroom at work. Because at work we had a bathroom that was back in the back room, and it wasn't exactly the cleanest one. It wasn't for public use, but every time I wanted to gamble, I went back there. And the stench that came from that bathroom, the stench that came from the liquor and other stuff that seeped in, and the different other pieces of the environment there, really became tied to the idea of gambling. So for a long time that worked, and I left that convenience store work after about 3 years of my recovery, and went back to, or rather continued with, my second job, which was working in a group home. And that still meant I had to find a way to keep away from the little things. I mean, you go to a training, somebody will ask, well, do you want to contribute to a 50-50 or this or that or the other? And, well, some would say that's not gambling. Here's the thing. Anything that would involve you making a change in a practice or requires you to have luck or chance or any sort of thing of that nature can be gambling. Because I look back and I found out that my gambling was tied to playing marbles on the playground back in 3rd and 4th grade. And in some cases, I can actually look at working at a camp and having eating contests and enjoying winning something called the Bottomless Pit Award. And that was something I won every week when I was a camp counselor. I had anywhere from 10 to 12 boys in my cabin, and I could out-eat all of them combined. For that matter, I could out-eat pretty much all of them and all of the staff that I worked with. And that leads you to problems, because then it's a matter of pride. And the same thing happened when it comes to Mountain Dew. I used to outdrink anybody in Mountain Dew. And I have health issues today that it's possible they're contributed, but I don't think it's entirely that. I think a lot of it was stuff I grew up with. But that's the key to look at. And then I want to talk to you a little bit more about something else. And that is, what did I do after that? Because, yes, I went to meetings. All this time, I still go to GA meetings. As a matter of fact, I've tried to start one over the last year. And January 28th, if we get membership to start growing, it will have been 1 year since I started it in a little bitty town. But at the moment, it's a very small group. But they're very committed. There's one person that made some good time. And as I said, there's other things I've had to do over the years, and that is, you think about the service. Now, for me, if you were to look online, look for Bernard Zeitler, and put in addiction with it, you will find that I've written 5 books, and I'm going to work on an anthology, which will combine all of them. But here's the thing. The first one was simply trying to understand the gambling addiction. Because until I really started realizing I had a problem, I didn't think it was an addiction. And I came across the idea of one French fry theorem, and that's part of the book. It talks about how you can't go into a restaurant and order one French fry and expect to be satisfied and walk out with one single solitary French fry. Not an order of French fries, one single French fry. Because when you go to a restaurant, you want the whole experience, and that's what it's like for a gambler. Whether it be casinos, card games, any form of gambling, it's about the experience. It's about the positive feelings you get. I mean, you go to a restaurant that you really enjoy, and you have a great experience. I mean, people are waiting on you, and all that stuff. My birthday was Thursday, and I went to a place called Red Robin. Now, Red Robin gives you a free burger for your birthday. I went in there, and it was wonderful. I enjoyed the burger. I enjoyed the fries. I went with a glass of water because I really didn't want to get pop or anything like that. But I enjoyed that burger. And at the end of it, I didn't pay a penny for it because it was my free one. And since I didn't have anybody to join me with that, even though I could have had my wife, my new wife, the one I've been married to since 2013, come with me, it just didn't seem like a good idea to get her involved in that. I was up there taking care of some business to try to help another person. But that's where we're at anymore. And what I did is I worked on a program that I've actually started using and started sharing with people. And I did a little research online, and it's called the 30-day detox for compulsive gamblers. But it'll work with pretty much any addiction. And what I did is, well, you have normally a set bunch of things that you do as far as reading a devotional or in GE meetings, it's a blue book. It's something that doesn't change from time to time. It doesn't roll with where you're at. So what I did is I came up with thoughts for the day. And by the time you get through with that and with the journal, the other things I've written, what it is you start teaching yourself to come up with one thought that is personal to you. It's your thought, your understanding of things, your way of doing things, or your way of thinking that has nothing to do with gambling, or it can have something to do with gambling, but more on the lines of what you don't want to do. And one of my first ones was this. When I get up in the morning, I'm clean. I haven't gambled. But you know what? That first second, it's really not a significant thing to see. So I decided when I get up in the morning, one person, I'm one person, okay? But I'm one of a million people who aren't gambling. And that equates to decades of clean time. And it really makes a difference. Now, as far as how I did it because of people like you who are listening to the show who were supportive in my early days. So remember, be supportive to others if you've got top clean time mind. If you haven't, work on clean time that you can. So for those who are people who have a lot of clean time, be able to be available to those who are coming to you and need your help, whether you have the same addiction or not. For those of you who are family members, be supportive without being an enabler. Don't bail them out, but bail them in. In other words, why don't you just be a part of their life enough to help them get through it? And workplaces, friends, the same thing. Be available to them and try to be as understanding as possible. In the early days, it's gonna be horrible. You'll probably have arguments and stuff that they'll throw at you. They'll probably try to get you to do things for them. Just stay strong and hope and remind them to stay strong, that you're there for them. Thanks.
While I'm sad, you've been out all night, know you've been bad. Don't tell me different, know it's a lie.